What's up, everybody? I think we're live. Still getting used to using the StreamYard, or whatever it is the kids call it these days. And today I have a special guest with me, and I'm going to let him tell you how we met. Um, but we just have kind of been casual gamer friends. And sometimes you find those people that you just get along with, even when they have really strong opinions about things. But I actually enjoy hearing that. So without further ado, here is Mikey Loves Retro. And welcome to the show, Mikey. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties kicking in.
All right,
There you
there we
go.
are.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so we met on TikTok, good old TikTok, and met
Tic Tac.
see a couple people in chat from TikTok. So hey, what's up? Thanks guys for being here. I'm Mikey Loves Retro. I would say variety content creator slash new gen, but mostly retro gaming. So that's me in a
Yeah.
nutshell.
Yeah. In a nutshell. And so one of the things that I really wanted to hear about was because I was thinking about this, and I'm like, ever since I think the first time I heard of you, it was 8-Bit Fits, and he was like, "Hey, go follow my friend Mikey. Like he just got his account back." And yeah, like I forgot what happened, but it was something with your account on TikTok. So I followed you and I was like, "Oh, no." And I was like, "Oh, okay, now I see why you probably your account is getting fucked with."
Fucked with is light term. Um, yeah. So, I mean, my experiences on there haven't been the greatest. I mean, I've met a couple of great people, and a lot of negative people and just outright rude people. I mean, that's social media. That's the internet in general. I mean, I experienced that no matter where it could have been anywhere, Twitter, Instagram, but it seems to be, it from my experience on the platform, it seems to be that I experienced a lot more negativity on there than any other, and
Mhm.
it wasn't like that when I first started on there. I joined TikTok back in 2000 when the height of the pandemic. We were all forced to be staying in our homes and there was nothing to do. Businesses were shut down, places were shut down. There was nowhere to go. So I was on Instagram and I was screwing around with that for a while and wanted something new. And I'm like, all right, let me see what TikTok's about. And I saw there was a really cool, strong gaming community, especially a retro gaming community, and a lot of people were just having a lot of fun, going back and forth, you know, uh, just bantering, just having a good time. But it's changed, and a lot of it. My beginning experience was okay. I won't say it was great because a lot of the negativity and a lot of the things that happened after that were just not enjoyable. Not enjoyable. I've been suspended multiple times. I've been permabanned multiple times, but I did meet you, and I met a lot of other great people. So there's definitely a plus in that chapter of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you used to have like a pretty big following though, originally, right?
My first account was close to 11,000 before it got perma banned. And the funny part is that a video blew up that wasn't even game related. I was trying to do something a little different, so it was a reaction video of me reacting to a Queen cover, okay, by a particular gentleman who sounded like and looked like Freddie Mercury, and people were like, "Oh my God, who is this guy?" And it just blew up overnight, and I started getting followers and comments and followers and comments, and it was just that it propelled me into the higher numbers in other gamers started noticing me. Some more well-known gamers started noticing because of my numbers getting high. And then I went live and got permabanned on my live for plumber's butt. So yes, that's exactly what it was. It was plumber's butt, no joke, and that's what I got my first permaban from. So
That's
and
kind
I
of
had to
like
go in the fridge,
rocker.
get and then hey, look, hey, by the way, you're permabanned, and I could not get my account back no matter what. So
As much as it sucks, that's kind of like rocker Hall of Fame. I feel like you need a plaque for that.
yeah,
Permaband from
for
TikTok
plumber's
for
butt, yeah,
plumber's
yeah.
butt.
I mean, yeah, I should get a plaque for something for dealing with all their stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gotten worse. Definitely mutuals that people know. This there was a certain individual that I had issues with on there as well, and and I have screenshots of the gentleman or the person telling their community to report all my videos. So that got me permabanned again, and so I've been permabanned multiple times on there. But like I said, I did meet a lot of cool, interesting people. I did meet people. I did learn about new games that I wouldn't have known about.
Hmm.
Honestly, probably wouldn't even experience or played without actually some of the people that I met on there. Like you mentioned 8-Bit Fits and 8-Bit Fits, Pete and JJ, a couple of other people on there that started playing Mega Man. And I grew up knowing Mega Man, but I didn't really play Mega Man 2, Mega Man. And then I saw everybody play Mega Man 2, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, let me try Mega Man 2. And I fell in love with Mega Man. And, I saw, people playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out. And then you mentioned, as I'm a huge RPG gamer, you know that. And, you mentioned a game to me called Far East to Eden, and I was like, "What the fuck is this shit?" I'm like, I never would have known about that game. I just actually ordered a book from Bitmap Gaming just on RPGs because I love it so much, and I'm looking through this book and like so many RPGs, and that's true. Social media and other people that I met that told me about this and told me about that and a lot of things. So it definitely, I did have positives. It wasn't all negatives. There were definitely some positives that came from it. So I mean, it wasn't all that bad, but I would say that I wish it didn't go the way it did.
Hmm.
The people I think the people in charge of the application and the way things work, I think they could have gave us a little bit more freedom, or gave me a little bit more freedom. Costly shadow ban. So I mean, it was a choice to say, all right, enough's enough. I can't like deal with that. Especially for my mental health. It was just very toxic, and I didn't want to
Oh
be the
yeah.
person. Hey, you know what? Mikey's a real fuck face. And I don't want that. I don't want that like going on and stuff like that. People who know me, they know who I really am. Oh, I
Right.
think we got. Oh, there she is.
Sorry, I had to put shades on. My eyes are starting to bother me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but let me real quick, and I'm holding on to that thought, but let me real quick say hi to people in the chat. I got a $2 super chat from Kevin Clausen. Thank you. Sega Saturn is greater than Planet Saturn. Planet Saturn. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. James hates everything. Hi, what's up, James? And then up at the top, we got Freedom Gamer. Hello, Toxin and Toxin. It's been a while. Did I already say Sabi? Solomon McNeil and Mikey. Hi, Mikey. And then we've got Saturn Gaming. That's kind of cool. Paul, my mod, good to have you here, Paul. Glad to see you. Yeah, all social media. Yes. Damage control on the road. Thanks for listening in. Good supporter of the channel too. So thank you for that. And James, Kevin, and Bobby Broadway. Manny. Hey, what's up, Manny? And Andy's Game Room present. Good to have you all here. And for anybody else who comes in, welcome. And who's watching the replay, hi. Uh, Anyways, so yeah, the toxicity on TikTok, it definitely like grew kind of like exponentially over a very short period of time, I feel like. And it was like so all somebody had to do was report your account to someone, and then it was like boom, you're like instantly shadow banned, or you're getting, like in your case, I couldn't even believe like you would be streaming and you would get like cut off, and it was like some totally like bogus report, like
Well, it happens a lot. I mean, it's not just
right.
me. I mean, especially in the gaming community, in the retro
Hmm.
gaming community. I mean, there are several people in the chat that also I know are from TikTok and stream on TikTok, and they've experienced it where they would get false reported, and then they would have their stream interrupted. Um, one of the strangest cases was that one of my friends, Retro Ren, that I met through there, he was playing Zelda Randomizer, and they suspended him for adult nudity. I'm like, how is a
Right.
randomizer of Zelda, Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, considered, adult nudity? Or you'll get hit with the hate speech or hateful behavior, and it's like, what's so hateful about gaming? I think later on it became less and less. I think because of the way the scare of the application going away. So I think that it actually changed a lot for you were able to get away with a lot more. And I've seen things that, like, people using profanity, not profanity, bigotry and doxing on
Mm.
there. Like, I
Mhm.
actually sat there in a live hearing the person say the N-word over and over and over, and admitting to doxing people, and the stream would still be on. And I'm like, how is that not an offense? And how is this stream still continuing going on when there's, less cases of where people are just using the R word in a not so like direct meaning of the word, you know,
Mhm.
uh, and just, oh, you're suspended for saying that. I'm like, what? So context didn't even matter, but someone could say the N word and say that they dock somebody and admitted to that,
Right.
and no action is being done. It was just a weird time when on there, and honestly, I kind of miss just talking to people on there, because there's a lot of people that will not jump. They're comfortable on the platform and will
Yeah.
not jump to other platforms, or move to other platforms to discuss. And but you know what? Mentally, it's better because I'm not dealing with the toxicity.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and for me, it was like TikTok was kind of like the gateway to YouTube, and I got shadow banned at one point because I was having I had like a private chat with like one of my friends on there, and I said I was talking about who's that guy from that '70s show that went to jail.
Hmm.
Yeah, or Danny Masterson, right?
Right, right, right.
Yeah. And I said something about him in the chat, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this dude's about to get convicted for being a P or something." And I didn't even spell the whole word out. And then TikTok immediately, like I sent it to him, and TikTok immediately was like, "This word is not allowed to be used on our platform, blah blah blah. You violated our terms of service." And I was like, "Whoa, Jesus Christ, this is a private chat, dude." And I'm like not even saying it in a like malicious way. I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
and I was like blown away by that. But then after that, I was like shadow banned. And so I was like, and I had hit, I think, I don't remember how many followers I have over there. But it was a decent number for where, like, how long ago I had started. And anyways, so I had kind of like migrated over to YouTube and just decided to stick with YouTube. And fortunately, just as far as like my account goes, like I haven't been, I guess shadow banned, or the algorithm has paid attention to my content. So that's worked okay for me. But yeah, so not to get stuck on it, but a lot of toxicity in the gaming community. You and I have both dealt with it.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you go. And I think like navigating it can be really difficult when it kind of hits you, especially when you're dealing with other content creators, because there's circumstances where you think like somebody's your friend and then they're not, and there's
Oh,
all this,
oh yeah.
yeah, there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes. And
I've had that multiple times. I mean, I can't even count on, and no
right,
matter what platform, people just get jealous. People
yeah,
jealousy, or they just, they want you to, the old saying, they want you to do well, but they don't want you to do better than them. And as soon as you start doing better than them, their jealousy shows their head, and then, oh, they don't have time, or they just, it's different. And there's a big difference. When I said I met cool people on there, as far as like actual friends and acquaintances, there's a difference between having an acquaintance and friends on there. I met a few friends. I met a lot of acquaintances,
hmm,
and there's a big difference. It's like, yeah, we're acquaintances. We're not friends, or yeah, I consider you a friend and stuff like that. So,
hmm,
there's a big difference, and you get to really know who your actual friends are. You think they are, and then it's like, no, they were just taking a lot of energy away from you and just draining your energy and focus away from what you enjoy and what you want to do.
yeah, it's crazy because I'm not one of those people, like the type of person that gets jealous. So I don't really understand jealousy. And I probably when I was younger, but like I've never like been an inherently jealous person either. And so I don't go like my thought process doesn't revolve around it, I guess. So like other people who do get jealous, like I don't really look out for that, if that makes sense. I mean, I do
Right.
now obviously, but I mean, I kind of had to learn the hard way. So but yeah, it's true. At the end of the day, I mean, what else would cause people to do something to, something that they know is going to affect someone else negatively, I guess. But um okay, I don't want to get stuck on that, but
Yeah,
I
no
just
problem.
wanted to give a little bit of context, a little
Yeah,
bit of history chat. Mikey, he's got very strong opinions. He's very like loud-mouthed. I love it.
yeah, that's
He's
definitely me.
and he's a gamer. Like that's the other thing. He's like a real like dyed in the wool gamer, even if he's playing an old game. I mean, like you said, falling in love with Mega Man 2. Like that's something that not many adult gamers can say, like that they fell in love with an older game, played it all the way through, or like you actually explored Far East of Eden and really got into it.
I
So
gotta get back to that. Oh my God, I gotta get back into that big time.
yeah, and so but that's one of the things that I love about your content and stuff is you're just like kind of like a raw gamer, and I like it. But what I wanted to kind of talk about was you've been talking a lot about the Saru,
Yeah,
and I haven't. So my Sega Saturn, I have a Japanese Sega Saturn with the RAM cart bootloader combo thing. Um, so it's like an action replay, and then I
right, with the
reflashed
pseudo.
it. Yeah, I reflashed it with the pseudo Kai or
Right.
whatever. And so I still play disc games on mine, but I almost that one the Saru combo package that I was showing you that I ordered, I actually canceled it because they were like, "Oh, it's going to be like, a month or something like that." And I'm like, "Well, no, you're not having my money while I wait a month for this to." And so but anyways, I wanted to know what your experience has been like. Have you had like first of all, have you had any games that haven't worked correctly or that have given you like issues that you were disappointed about?
Here's the thing: everything I thrown at this thing absolutely knocks it out of the fucking park. I mean, compatibility wise, there's a compatibility list on Reddit, but it's old. And I'm
Mm,
like, wait, let me go test this game out. Like one of the biggest concerns for me, because I saw a lot of other content creators on YouTube talking about the Saroo and how it, oh well, it didn't play this for me, it didn't play that for me. I'm like, what? I'm like, all right, Golden Axe Duel, which was a big game for me. I was like, all right, let me go check that one out. Played it. Virtual Fighter just needed a quick configuration to put in. Um, And one game in the hunt, which is not the Saroo's issue, this is a issue with the actual game itself. The in the hunt was the game has some kind of internal code where it just freezes up, so you have to have another controller plugged in to the second port, or you have to unplug the controller and wait for the dolphin scene to actually show up, and then plug the controller back in. So that's not the fault of the truth. That's the fault of the bad programming on the game. And there's forums from like before this thing was even released talking about it. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So it's not the Saroo issue, because every game I threw at it absolutely worked 100%. No issues like whatsoever. Now I've had a Sega Saturn since it was released. And I had in action, the action replay. I had it, and I had the Pseudo for the longest time. The problem that with not, I wouldn't say it's in the problem with Pseudo or issue with Pseudo. It's I didn't discover my Saturn, like really discover it, until I got a Saroo, because burning CDs, putting it on, and then it's like, oh, I was playing Golden Axe Duel, and there's some skipping and and stuff like that because it's still a CD. I didn't really discover or start really getting into the Saturn, until I've gotten the Saroo. And I'm a big fan of anything that can use SD cards and or play
on original hardware
games on the hardware, like EverDrives or any kind of device that can use the original hardware, so you could experience the game as it was intended. So when I found out about this thing, I'm like, so this is pretty much an EverDrive for your Saturn. And I'm like, okay, I don't need to modify, don't need this. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll pull the plug. Even though I have the Pseudo, I'll pull the plug. And I'm like, I just hope this thing is worth it. It's worth every freaking penny. It's worth every penny, because like I said, I've thrown Japanese games. I could play homebrews. I could play everything. And it loads up super quickly. I mean, like split second quickly. And one of the best features is that it also has it acts like a RAM card. Okay, so you can play those the games that have the 4 RAM card megs of RAM, and also the fact that you can use it as a your saves, each individual save on the cartridge, like using what you call it to save the games instead of using your internal memory, which would if you ever play RPGs, you run out of space like crazy. So I like the fact that I have unlimited save space. So I totally recommend it to anybody if you have a Saturn, because the games on the Sega Saturn, I don't have many. I had missed, and that's the only long box game I had. I had a couple of games that, like demo games and games that came with it, like Knights and Daytona. But I really didn't collect for the system. I really didn't collect for the system. And it's like, all right, let me go get Magic Ray Night Earth. What? I'm like, oh, let me go get Shining Wisdom. The games are just very, very expensive. And I was like, all right, I need an alternative that I could play these games and check them out and see if I actually enjoy them. And it turns out that I put over 100 games on my Saroo right now, and like I said, everyone has played. I haven't come across games that I haven't been able to play, and then also translated games like Police Knots, which actually works great. So like every game actually works perfect, and I'm really impressed. And I can only think that it's going to get better because of the open source. The guy TP Unix, I think, is who actually does the firmware for it. Is really on top of it. He's looking at talks about adding cheats abilities, and being able to play backups from the Saroo as well, like CD backups. So he's definitely keeping things going. So yeah.
I mean, and that was like my biggest curiosity about it, but it pretty much turns your Saturn into of course I'm trying to blank right now, but the cartridge system that Sega had you know, that Die Hard Arcade was on, Virtua Fighter Remix. I cannot believe, like, I'm literally having a brain fart. Let me look it up real quick. But Sega had a cartridge based system that was, it came out after like their Virtua Fighter system. I'm just like totally brain dead right now. Let me see. Sega Arcade cartridge system.
Not the 32X. You're not talking about the 32X.
No. Let me see. Sega arcade systems. Oh wait, that's way too early. Okay, so we had, yeah, the STV, that was it. They had Model 1, Model 2, and then yeah, the STV was a cartridge based system. And so you had the board and then you could just put the cartridge on it, and it was like Die Hard Arcade, Virtua Fighter Remix. There was a slew of games that were on there. And then Model 1 and Model 2 were each had their own, I think they each had their own like sub boards for the system, but I feel like Model 1 was like pretty complex. Like there was like 3 or 4 components to it. But anyways, yeah, so it's called the STV. So if you can emulate some of those games in MAME.
Oh, nice.
I think actually you can emulate quite a few of them. But yeah, so that's kind of what the Saroo, is that how you say it? Saroo turns them into, like,
pronounced.
okay. Cause I'm like Saru. I'm like, you know, so I'm like, oh, Saroo about your Saturn. That's why I made that really cringy title.
I didn't get it until now.
Okay. I quit comedy. No, but yeah, I'm interested in getting one just because of the speed. And Luna, can you not bark? My dog is so obnoxious. Every time I'm live streaming, she's so obnoxious. Oh, Manny's talking about it. Sega Titan video, STV, nice. Yeah, Saturn hardware. Yeah, but anyways, I want to get a Saroo, and I like the fact that it loads everything quickly. It's crazy. What I was going to tell you is that when I was younger, I used to have a Saturn, and then eventually I modded it. Like, it was before mod chips were really scarce, and right. I got like a mod chip for like $12, and then nice. I just, yeah, and the Saturn mod was really easy. It was like 3 soldering points, so like anybody could do it. And I modded it, and then I had like a huge collection of long boxes. Though, like, probably had like 18 long boxes, and I had some good ones. I miss
long boxes, man. I miss long boxes for I miss long boxes for Saturn. They just, something about a long box sitting on your shelf and just staring at it, going, they stand out amongst everything else. They right. just stand out. They just look so cool. And you know, the instruction booklets were long. I miss instruction booklets. Like, give me instruction booklets, damn it.
Yeah. And you know, PS1 was doing that too, but they were like gradually moving to like the plastic, then the cardboard. So Saturn just stuck with the plastic long boxes the whole time, which I like those because they're more like a you know, obviously a tall CD case, but they're cool. They're just unique. And then you get the little foamy inside, and you like huff it like it's, you know, glue or something. Every time you open it, you're like,
yep. Well, Sega CD has them too. Sega CD did that for a long time as well. I think they used the long boxes.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, in the US. See, I have a lot of import games, and you know, Japan is all about like being compact, and then everything we got in America, I mean, even the Super NES is like closing time, bitch. So, you know, like big old titties or something, but just slapping you in the face. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, like, you can hold a Japanese collection in a lot smaller space, basically. So there's that. Let me just veer off the topic of Saturn for a second, because I've always wanted to talk to you about this, but your hatred for the N64 and the N64 controller.
Okay. So I knew, I kind of know, I get asked a lot about why I don't like the N64 and stuff like that. It just, there's no goddamn freaking RPGs on the system. And if somebody says Mick Fang or whatever the fuck that game is, I'm gonna go postal. All right. Look, there's no RPGs for the game for the system. Number one. Number two, I worked. Okay, it's like I know what I'm talking about. I worked at Toys R Us during the launch of the N64. So, okay, and oh god, after the Super Nintendo, one of my favorite systems, I'm like, can I work in the Nintendo 64 section? Begged the people I worked with, can I work in the Nintendo? Yeah, sure, yeah. So I was like, cool. So I would able to, we'd have the kiosks, and I would play the Mario game, Mario 64, all day long, and at the time, I'm like, yo, this is like the coolest thing next to sliced bread. But as you get older, you start realizing that there's really not a great library there. The controls are really clunky.
Mm-hmm.
The controller is awkward. And the game's camera angles, for the love of God, suck. But here's the funny part. I'm a Resident Evil fan. I like Resident Evil, and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to check out Resident Evil 2 on the N64. And like, holy shit, why does it play so good on the N64 when it's notorious for bad camera angles? So I don't know if it was lazy developing back then that they just said, hey, you know what? No, none of these kids are really going to notice because it's going to be the first 3D system. Okay. I don't know what it was, but they did have 2D games that looked well. The 3D games clunkiness and the visuals on stuff, the camera angles, like majority of them were just not good. And I know a lot of people play into the nostalgia factor, and stuff like that. But I don't play into that. If the game is good, the game is good. If the game sucks, the game sucks, period. And Mario 64, I'm sorry, the game is not that great.
Wait, you don't like Mario 64?
It's not that great. I think Mario 2D titles and the future 3D titles did a better job than Mario 64. Not to say that Mario 64 wasn't iconic for the time that it was released,
but it was kind of a stepping stone.
It was definitely a stepping stone. But I think that there's a lot better games, Mario games, and even 3D Mario games than Mario 64. It's like it's not.
But
it's
at the time,
At the time, yes. At the time, yeah. There was nothing that would compare it, because it was just iconic. It was like, whoa. Okay. And like I said, when I worked at, Toys R Us during the time the system was released, it's like, I want to play the Mario 64 game. I wanted to. I begged to play in it. It was like, I want to play it. But it's like, now going back, looking at it and how many games are out, that Mario has released. It's definitely not one game that I would go back to often. It's not a game that I go back to often, though. I mean, if I had no choice to play it, I play it, but it's not my first choice of game.
I loved Pilot Wings 64. A lot of people hate that game. Most people hate that game, but I loved it.
I didn't get into either Wings.
Wave Race, I thought was really fun.
Race was good. I'll give you that.
And so Cruising USA, I was actually like pissed. I was pissed about it. I was pissed about that port because I thought that they did a shitty job on the port. I mean, there was a lot of frame rate drops. They didn't have the full sprites for like the counter, and like there was other stuff just missing out. It was like one of those lazy ports. And then what was the other thing? Oh, KI Gold. KI Gold was almost perfect, except for they left like all the FMVs out, and the character sprites, they couldn't do the 3D sprites, so they did like pre-rendered, which I was okay with, because if you had a good display, they actually look decent. Like I use S-Video on mine, and the game looks really good. They took it from being a 3D pre-render to being actual, like a mix of 3D and then 2D regurgitated sprites, basically.
I actually saw your video earlier about the KI Killer Instinct, and you were talking about that. So yeah, like, love Killer Instinct. My god, I mean, like this, I wish they would do like bring a new one out and just do it justice. Like, can we get a new one? It's like a real good new one.
Yeah. Well, the latest, I mean, the newest release of Killer Instinct, like the one that's on Xbox and PC, like I really like it. But yeah, so KI Gold, anyways, at the time, like I was pissed about it, but playing it now, I appreciate it a little, I think a lot more. But the FMVs, and then when they came out with Resident Evil 2, which you mentioned, they put FMVs in Resident Evil 2, and I was like, see, they can do it. So why didn't they do it in these other games? Like there was tons of games, Midway games.
But that's
Yeah.
my point exactly. It's like, is it just lazy developing? You had the technology, you have a 64-bit system, okay? The only real 64-bit system out there on the market, there was really nothing to compete with it. So
Well,
why not just
it wasn't really
do what you know the system can do? It's the fact that I think a lot of just was just lazy developing.
Yeah, I mean, and plus like the way that the architecture of the N64, was it like actually 64-bit? I thought it was like some weird like oblong 32-bit system. But I mean, if you look at some of the games, like for example on PlayStation versus the N64
Oh
version,
yeah,
they
yeah.
almost look better on PlayStation, like they look sharper. But the N64 had a lot of exclusive titles. I mean, someone mentioned Ocarina of Time and what's the other one, Majora's Mask, and which ultimately led to, you know, remakes that, or not remakes, excuse me, but like you know, where they just enhance it. Basically, we
Yeah,
got those on DS, and those were
yeah. The one
great.
on 3DS is fantastic.
Yeah, I absolutely love those. And that's one thing that I think is great about the N64. There are a lot of games on there that they literally could just spruce up, make them 60 frames per second. They don't have to do much, and I think it would really add to like the replayability of the game. You know what I mean? I mean, imagine playing if you haven't seen it, the Mario 64 in the Unreal Engine.
Mhm.
You
I
know,
seen videos of it. I seen the videos of it. I mean, if they could do that and fix the camera angles, the controls, and stuff like that, you know, I'm sure it will do well. You know, but I
mm,
mean, that's like one of my biggest complaints. Besides the controller being awkwardly held, I mean, you know, most
yeah.
people that own an N64 will go out and get a brawler or some kind of third party controller because it just the feeling of it is just awkward. You really didn't know how to hold it, and you know, you hold it one way for digital games, you hold it one way for analog, you know, and if you have big hands, you would knock your knuckles into the side of the controller. So that's, you know, I mean, I give them credit for being the first ones to you know, create the analog stick. If they didn't create the analog stick, we, you know, I mean, and that's what we use nowadays. You know, like every controller has analog. You know, Nintendo created that. You know, so I give them credit. They're always, you know, trying to, you know, sorry, revolutionize, you know, and change the game. So I give Nintendo credit for always thinking out of the box and trying something new, and stuff. I mean, aesthetically, I always said I love the way Nintendo 64 looks. You know, that black sleek, the four controllers was a great touch. You know, it looked like you know, a new generation console. The other thing that annoyed me was Nintendo is a money grab company. They always have been, and that little freaking red little piece that you needed to put in the expansion pack to play
Mm,
a game, you know, or else you couldn't play it. Like, why do I need to get this? And it really didn't enhance the graphics that much, you know, from Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask, or you know, or you needed it to play the
mm.
Donkey Kong game, which I thought was utter dog shit. Excuse my language, but I'm a
Well,
big Donkey
and you
Kong
got,
fan. I thought that game was
it
not
would
good.
scale it up, but you would lose, like you would drop frames.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
so
Yep.
you'd go from like being almost, you know, 30 frames per second to like 24 frames per second or
Yeah.
something. But yeah, that was, I mean, you know, N64, I think it's, personally, this is my opinion, I think it's a staple. I think it's like, it's one of those consoles that like, even though it didn't age well, there are like, you know, a few modern solutions to kind of enhance the experience. But like for me, like the games on there, that have been able to translate over or that were good, I still like that aspect of N64. And there's a few good imports on there that have translations now. So it
Right.
actually, there's an RPG on there that you might like. And I've another brain fart, but there's an English translation of it. I'll have to look after the
Yeah,
show
definitely.
and
I
DM
mean, I
you
don't
about
mind
it.
checking it out. I mean, I didn't care for Paper Mario and all that other stuff. I mean, you know, I've tried. You know, I actually did enjoy a couple of games, and it's a third party title. It's not that it's not. I'm sorry, excuse me, not third party title, but the unknown games. on the system, not the first party titles or the AAA titles that everybody knows. Oh, the Mario's, the Zeldas, the Kirby's. It's games outside that I wasn't aware of that
But
were like,
but
oh wait,
but
this is kind of cool.
but
Sin and
Zelda,
Punishment, like
but
Sin and
Zelda.
Punishment's kind of cool.
Yeah,
You
Sin
know,
and Punishment is cool.
yeah,
And then they eventually brought that out on what, Wii or something. A lot of those games translated over to Wii releases, I think. Not Virtual Console, but like they actually had like a release like that was, it was a little bit more enhanced. Manny says Quest 64 deserves more love.
no,
Um,
don't.
and I saw somebody else a minute ago. See, GoldenEye, I always thought was, and Kevin Clausen and Manny, I think, said GoldenEye. I never got hugely into GoldenEye because everybody played 4-player, and like I never had a big enough TV to where it was comfortable for me to play. And you know, my ADHD ass would be like, my eyes would be bouncing around to like all the different screens while I'm like trying to just, I just get shot in the face every time. So
Yeah, I didn't care for GoldenEye either. I mean, I played a little bit, but I really didn't care. I was never big on the like first person shooters, and it's like, oh, GoldenEye, and then they released it on the Switch online, but nobody plays it. There's so many better games now. We evolved to first person shooters that there's so many better games out there than GoldenEye. So you're not going to see a lot of people play GoldenEye anymore.
yeah, well then they did the re-release that they kind of I mean, they didn't really, I guess, do much. They upscaled it.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Sorry. Sorry about that.
So
So
dog
I've like,
again.
no, that was actually one of my gremlin children. Um uh dude, when do you ever like order like DoorDash or something and then like you go out to like grab the food and you like just crack your door open and you're like looking around like, like a hobgoblin, and you just like grab your food and like slam your door shut? Like I do that all the time.
Believe it or not, I have never ordered DoorDash or Grubhub or any of those. We have like, anywhere we order, we know the driver and stuff. We order from, our regular places. We
Mm.
just order, if we're going to order like Chinese or pizza or something like that, we know the people that they know us already. So it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
so it's a lot
That
different.
makes sense. You're in a more like authentic area when it comes to takeout food and
Yeah.
stuff. I've got, well, out here we have like a lot of like really authentic like Mexican street tacos,
I
and
love that.
yeah, and then we have like mom and pop shops. Like those are
Yeah.
good. Those are really good. Chinese kind of, but not like, probably definitely not what they have in New York. But somebody here asked a good question. What's your favorite N64 game? If you could pick one game, what would be your favorite N64 game?
Oh God. Well, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Okay, I'm a big Star Wars fan. It's no
Ooh.
secret that I'm a big Star Wars fan and stuff like that. And even this one had bad camera angles, but it was so iconic. And
Mm.
it's the only N64 game. It's the only version on any system. It's not on any other system besides the PC, and the PC port is not that great either. So Shadows of the Empire,
Yeah.
Star Wars
Yeah.
Shadows of the Empire deserves a goddamn fucking remake,
Yeah.
and it's like it needs to be done in today's engine, and it would sell like pancakes. It was such a good game and so different
It is.
that
So
it
it
just
is.
needs a remake like
Yeah.
bad.
I beat that one a couple times, and I can't believe we weren't talking about it earlier when we were
Yeah.
listing off games. But yeah, that is a really, really
The
good
Star
game.
Wars
Good
games
choice.
on the
Good
N64,
choice.
all of them, to be honest, were absolutely great. I loved Rogue Squadron and
Mhm.
the Star Wars Racers. I think they were all fantastic.
See, I played Star Wars Racers on Dreamcast, so I thought the N64 version was trash. But I mean, Star Wars Racer is a cool game,
Yeah.
so I hear you. Rogue Squadron, I didn't play until I got it on GameCube.
Oh,
I think
fantastic.
they have what is it, part 2? Is it Rogue Squadron 2?
Yeah, 2 and 3 I think are on GameCube.
Yeah, okay. So anyways, yeah, that's a really good pick though. Shadows of the Empire is a really good game. And I agree. Like, why haven't they come out with like a modern remake of it? I mean, I wouldn't even want them to like do a whole lot, like just like 4K everything out, like, you know,
Yeah.
and like make it look super smooth and sexy, and like 60 FPS, 120 FPS would be like amazing, you know,
Oh,
maybe get
absolutely,
some
yeah. I mean, they're
vertex
creating
lighting
more Star
in
Wars
there or
games
something.
now, so why not? Like, that'd be a perfect time. You know,
Mm,
create, you know, do this, you know, with that, and that's it. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, 100%. Huh? That was like a New York accent. Like, hey, yeah.
Oh, I get hit all the time, like my accent. Like, you from New York? Yeah, yeah. How did you know? Oh, you have an accent. I go, I don't realize it, but apparently I do. But yeah, you know, what's funny
Uh,
with, you know, arcades and stuff, when, you know, and talking about and I was talking with the, you know, wife, and you know, kids today will not experience, like, I grew up in New York. Okay, speaking of New York, I grew up in New York, in Brooklyn, and every corner had some kind of arcade machine.
mm,
Okay, and like, you would go to like these mini malls, they would have arcade machines. You go to pizzeria, laundromat, deli, bodega, whatever had an arcade machine. And now I can't find an arcade machine in the streets anywhere. And it's sad because no, kids today will not experience dropping in that quarter into an arcade machine and playing. You know, even movie theaters had arcade machines,
mm-hmm.
and that's how I got into video games. Literally was through arcades, playing Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, you know, original. I played so many arcade games growing up, and so many different titles that I'm like, oh my god, yeah, I remember playing this here, and I remember playing this particular game here. You know, it was just fun, you know, growing up and seeing arcade games, and playing a whole bunch that I probably would have not experienced because, you know, of if they weren't around. And after school, you would walk home and, like, you know, and you pass by the deli and like, what's this? And like, okay, oh, do I have a quarter? Let me pop that in for a few minutes.
Yeah,
So yeah, arcade games were all over. Now it's like the only places you go find arcade games are in like a Dave and Buster's, and I'm like, why?
yeah. Well, there are some like niche places that, you know, have a bunch of older arcade games, and they'll make like an arcade bar or whatever, but it's
Yeah,
not like it was when we
it's
were
not the
kids.
same.
And one of the things that you don't really, the other big thing about an arcade is that you were in a crowd of people and it was competitive.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, most of the time though, you know, it was just like, could you back up what you were saying? You know, "Oh, I'm gonna whoop your ass in Street Fighter. I'm gonna, you know, whoop your ass in whatever." And but then you had the games where it was co-op, like, you know, TMNT, Xenophobe,
Double
and
Dragon.
Double Dragon. And so and then it, like, you, each game had like a different energy that you could share with someone, you know. And that was kind of like one of the really cool experiences with the arcades. Obviously, you know, it was just a complete sensory like orgasm basically. And then, you know, sharing that kind of energy with people, like that's what they don't experience is
No, they don't. It's different having the quarters line up. I got next. I got next. I got next. I got next. You know, Street Fighter 2 was a big, you know, trend. And then, any fighting game, any new fighting game come out, there was always something new. Mortal Kombat, or, you know, anything that's fighting related had people lining up quarters, wanting to check it out, learning all the moves. You know, oh, how do you do this? And then, like you said, the co-op games. I remember playing, you know, a Double Dragon with a buddy of mine. You know, he was like, "Dude, you go into the corner deli on, you know, and so forth." And like, yeah, all right, cool. I'll meet you at so and so at 3 p.m. Da da da. You going after school? Yeah. And we would just sit there playing Double Dragon, and then they had Rygar arcade, and it's like, goddamn, why is this game so goddamn hard? You know, eat your quarters, and then Ghosts and Goblins at the movie theater, and like,
oh
okay,
yeah,
you hit, you know, you're playing it. I'm like, this game, I'm gonna freaking break it. It's like you get so frustrated, but you would pop in another quarter, and then somebody would come over, dude, what level you on? Oh, let me show you how to do this. I'm like, and you're like, oh, dude, no way. And you would meet friends. That's how you would
Yeah.
meet friends. But
Yeah.
now you can't do that.
Yeah, it's definitely changed a whole
Mhm.
lot. But
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I feel fortunate to be able to talk about it and share that with people, because I mean it's a generational thing, you know. And while I'm kind of disappointed and sad, obviously, that, like, you
Yeah.
know, kids in general won't be able to experience that type of a social atmosphere, because, you know, you see a lot of the online stuff, and it's like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, a lot of toxicity builds up that way because nobody's face to face. There's no real emotional contact. It's just like words that everybody's getting angry about or
Yeah, because
whatever.
people get this machoism because you know you're behind a keyboard. It's like, oh, what are you gonna do? you know,
Hmm.
excuse me. And it's like, this is why nobody's gonna say that to you face to face. You know, they wouldn't dare. So it's like
Right.
it was just, people just having fun. People were just having fun. It was just banter. Oh, I'm gonna kick your butt. Da 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 da. Well, show me. All right. Well, who do you mean? Oh, that's weak, man. The name calling was just fun. It was banter. It was joking. It's like, dude, I got you
Right.
covered. I don't want you to lose your money here.
Right.
It was just fun times. It was different.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
different culture. Definitely a different culture.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Um, Manny says, what are your favorite arcade? Oh wait, what were your favorite arcades? Um, Did you have, like, I mean, I know you just said you had, like, you could just pretty much walk into an arcade, but, like, did you have, like, a favorite location?
As far as arcades go, like where they had a lot of arcades, Funtime USA, then Canal Street on Mott's. If you're ever down at Canal Street, I still think they're still around. There's a place on Mott's Avenue where it was an actual, an arcade spot, pinball machines. They that was a cool place, and stuff where they had, but it was more of, just walking in, like I said, walking in a laundromat and seeing, oh shit, Jungle Hunt. What is this? Playing Jungle King, Jungle Hunt, or whatever, you know, or a centipede. I'm like, or you're walking in, you're walking down the block, and like, your mom's going into the telco over there, and you see Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, and you had the cartel one, not even the stand-up arcade. You had the cartel where you had to look over,
Yeah,
like,
the
and the
wooden
sun glares, like,
cocktails.
oh god, the sun's in, I can't see
Yeah.
Pac-Man. Where is he? And it's like,
Yeah,
all right, and like, and stuff, and it was just the fact that there were arcade games all over. Mr. Do, Altered Beast, Gyrus, and different
yeah,
places, different areas where I used to live in New York, and here, over there, over here. And I remember, like, you know, after school there was like a luncheonette, and they had Contra. All right, which I'm notoriously bad at. They had Contra, but like you were saying earlier, like the crowd of people, like, yo, yo, this guy's really good. Oh, you still, like,
mhm,
and everybody's just watching, not even playing. They're just watching the people play, and like, yo, can you give me a little bit of elbow room? Punch out, and just I remember it's funny because I remember all these arcades and where I played them, and it was all at like delis, bodegas, and stuff. It wasn't like, I don't remember like the actual, like the Chuck E. Cheese's, and the ones that had a lot of arcade games. It was the ones that had the one or two arcade games, like the Street Fighter in a bagel store, or the
mm,
Killer Instinct at the at the local corner store. It's like I remember where I played those. The other ones I
yeah,
don't remember. I don't remember because they had so many. It was overwhelming. It was a surprise. It was nice walking into a deli. You're going in for a drink. Oh, what is this? So like, all right, cool.
yeah.
That was the spontaneous portion of it was really the cool part.
We had a sandwich shop that was, when I was in high school, you could walk to lunch. And we had a sandwich shop that was between our high school and then, like, the next little place that you could walk to. It wasn't very far. But there was a tumble pop in there. And So everybody was always trying to play, like, get the score up on Tumble Pop. Well, there's about
Mhm.
like 3, dorky gamer kids, because back then, if you were like a gamer, you were like a dork.
Right, right.
Um, it's and but yeah, there was like 3 of us that would try and kind of compete to get our name up at the top of the scoreboard. I remember that as being like one of the smaller places. And Manny, I don't know if you're still in here, but if you remember Aladdin's Castle in Redlands, if you ever went there, but in the 80s, Aladdin's Castle had, they had just a ton of great games in the 80s. But towards the end of the 80s, it was kind of like that weird period where there wasn't really anything like super new in the arcades. Um, and then, like, the Neo Geo and the fighting game scene started to happen.
Oh
And
yeah.
then, the 90s kind of re-erupted with like games like T2 and stuff like that. So all those kind of like really nostalgic ones. But he says he remembers. But I remember the transition was like being in the 80s in the arcade, and then being at the end of the 80s, so like the kind of the end of the golden age. I was in there, and that was like, all the Atari games, and like uh excuse me, Bally Midway games, Tron, Joust, and all these other games, Centipede, yada yada yada. And then towards the end, it was like Moonwalker, Shadow of the Beast, Shadow Dancer, like a lot of Sega games, Thunderblade. And then, Afterburner came in and all. So I remember like the transitional periods of being in the arcade and then showing up, and it was like, oh, like they've changed out some games and it's different here, and when I
Yeah.
was younger. And then the 90s is just kind of like a blur of everything from like Neo Geo progressing up to, like the Marvel versus Capcom 2 days. So like the early 2000s. And I think DDR was like the last kind of era of the arcade that I really remember being there in arcades, but this is at this point with DDR, it's like then they've got like these super mega malls where they've got these, giant arcades, and it's a lot of it is like rhythm games or racing games. There's not as many upright cabinets anymore. Like
Oh, there isn't.
you didn't see as many of them. So it was much more modern games like the Tekkens on the big kind of like marquee style arcade screens, and Tekken, Marvel versus Capcom 2, or SNK versus Capcom 2. Um, and so basically fighting games and rhythm games. And then it was like, I remember kind of arcades just like disappearing, and then they started to slowly come back again.
Yeah, it definitely has changed. I mean, I see it, if like as I mentioned earlier with like Dave and Buster's, you don't really see classic stand-up arcades. If you want to go and
Hmm.
see a stand-up arcade, you gotta, find them, like the traditional. There's a place where I went in Jersey, and they had all the old classic stuff, and it was just, again, it was just overwhelming. There was so many, stuff, and you pay for time. And the funny part is, like, with home console, and emulation and stuff like that, with so many different things, and talking about, the Saturn earlier, and games like I was looking at, like light gun games, and like, oh my god, I remember playing light gun games like House of the Dead, and like you don't get to see any of that no more. You don't get to see these classic light gun games, or classic games like Donkey Kong, Pac-Man. It's really like you get to see, like, oh, like you said, a lot of new modern stuff is like, let's make a deal. Who wants to play Let's Make a Deal? Like, seriously, I want to play freaking like something, you know.
It's like
It's just it's
gambling.
different. It's different. It's just it's
Yeah.
weird.
A lot of the newer stuff I've noticed is that they're mixing in is like gambling type stuff.
Yeah,
And then who is this? Sorry, but I'm gonna pull this up. Is that
setting.
that says, not sure where you're from, but arcades in my area are starting to pop up as bars. And yes, that we have that out here as well, in Southern California. And they're few and far between, I would say, but you know where they are if you're like, one of those types. Um, so it is cool that, people are kind of trying to preserve the historical aspect of a lot of those classics.
Yeah,
And It definitely depends on where you are, but yeah, it's mostly at places though where, you know, adults can go, or like family bar type restaurants,
Right.
where I'm kind of seeing that happen, and it's great. By the way, if you want to see a good documentary about that kind of stuff, watch Token Taverns if you haven't seen Token
Token
Taverns.
taverns.
Yeah, Token Taverns, and I think it's
Okay.
free on like Tubi or
I'll
something.
find it. Yeah, as long as I have the name, I'll
Yeah.
find it. I'm good at that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really cool flick. It just shows you it starts pre-COVID and kind of goes through, I think, post-COVID.
Right.
But you see a lot of different aspects of like arcades. Indie arcades are something that very often get overlooked, and they're usually in like the bar scene. But there's still like indie devs out there that are making actual arcade machines.
Oh,
Yeah, and there's kind of like a following for those niche spots where they are. And I would pull up the one that I have on here, but I'll send it to you in a DM. Sorry guys,
yeah, yeah.
I want to share it with you guys, but I don't have the link right now, so I would be all fumbling all over the place looking for it. But yeah, indie stuff. Matter of fact, I'm supposed to have and if you guys in the chat haven't heard of them before, Indie Wave Arcade. Same for you, Mikey. But his channel covers a lot of like indie arcade stuff and
Yeah,
and
I've heard the
games.
name
So
before. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so check it out.
Definitely
But I'm
gonna
supposed to have him on, and I'm excited about that
check it.
because he's going to talk to me about the there's like a food fight, basically 4-player version of the game that they developed in like a cocktail format. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of nice. Like I said, I miss it, but with home console now, like I modified my Xbox Classic, right? And then I put like and all the arcades on there. Like I have so many arcade games on there and stuff like that, and it just and I discovered games that like, oh dude, you never played that. I'm like, no, I never played that. I'm like, what is this? And I'll sit there and check out this new arcade game that I never played before, and it's like, dude, really? I'm like, yeah, because the ones that were popular back then to me, a lot of them were ported over to arcade, to console, and then the ones that like are popular to other people, like Cadillacs. I forget what dinosaurs and Cadillacs or
Cadillacs and
something.
dinosaurs, yeah.
Yeah. It's like I never played that. I'm like, I never played that in the arcade. And somebody said, dude, you gotta play that. You gotta play that. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm glad that we have options out there to emulate or to like, try out these games that other people experienced and they have fond memories with, that I can experience and go, dude, this brings back so many memories. I'm like, dude, thank you for sharing that with me. It's like, I would have never known about this game or that game and stuff like that. So the ability that we have now is great, but I wish I would have been able to experience what they experienced. And I wish they would be able to experience what I experienced. Like, I can't tell
Yeah.
people how excited I was to see, like Mr. Do or Altered Beast, which is one of my favorites. It's like, oh my God, what is this? Nobody's gonna, they're not gonna get that same experience. But the fact that we have the ability to, emulate or do this or do that or try these games out now, like it's just it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I miss the old days, but I'm glad we have something that preserves them and we can still play them today.
Yeah, I completely agree. When emulation first started really emerging, I remember donating to, I want to say it was No Cash Game Boy A, or No Cash Game Boy. And that was like one of the first emulators that I ever used. And it was just a Game Boy emulator. Nothing crazy back then, still had a CRT monitor. And it was like, I donated like, I don't know, $5 to the dev
Right.
or whatever, because this was just in the beginning of emulation. And then there was ZSNES, and there was a couple other no cash emulators, and then you had like the Mega Drive emulator, and I remember it used to have like blood dripping from the top of the screen. I don't know why. And anyways, long story short, I just remember when it first started happening, and I was like, oh my God, because I was still kind of young. I think, I was like, I don't know, 17 to 18 or something like that. and I was just like, oh my god. And when ZSNES came along, I was like, I couldn't believe it, because then I was able to play like all these SNES games that I
Yeah.
had never had a chance to play. And this was before they even had, I think, Super FX emulation working correctly, and then DSP was like the next big hurdle. And then all like the single chip games that they had to get working right, which it's amazing when you think about how all of these emulators have been backwards engineered and devved by these people who did it just out of the goodness of their heart because they love gaming and they wanted a
Gaming,
way, and then like you have all these big companies who now have basically re-release these games. A lot of them use these emulators or like derivatives of these emulators, from open source and stuff. And it's like, man, like for the people who are cracking down on emulation so hard, it's like, if it
why?
wasn't if it wasn't here, and like a lot of us who were funding it back in the day, even if it was $2-5 to the devs of those things to help them because we believed in what they were doing, and like, then you've got these companies like Nintendo that are just like, oh, piracy bad. Oh, I get like the Switch because it's like a brand new thing. Like, okay. But like for these old, systems that are especially like pre 2010, I guess, it's like,
Yeah,
why do
I
you
don't
even
get that.
care?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I understand you don't want people to for pirating and stuff like that for a newer console. 100%. I don't condone that. I don't, it's like, yeah, like buy the game, support the developers, but for stuff that's like 20 years old, 30 years, it's out of production. You're not, just let us enjoy the stuff and stuff like that. It just I get it. I get like new stuff, but like old stuff, and I've emulated for like ever. I mean, like, man, SNES 9X and BizHawk, and stuff like that. Just let us enjoy. I mean, with the games being so, and that's the other thing. Like, they want, it's like, oh well, support the, like, how am I supposed to support a developer that's no longer making the game, that's 30 years old, that wants $1,000 because that's what the market price is on price charting? I'm like, I can't do that. I just can't
Right.
afford that. Like, come on,
Yeah.
dude. Like, you know, I can't afford a $500 game. Like one of my most expensive games, speaking, and Super Nintendo, is I have a Castlevania Dracula X complete. All right, and I go look at the price, and I'm like, holy shit, this thing was at $1,400. Who in their right mind is gonna pay $1,400 to play a game which is easily emulated, or other means to play it? I mean, sure, there are collectors out there that love it, and hey, more power to you. But I mean, like, look, like, I could easily go online, 2 seconds, go to here, go there. Oh, I'm playing the game, and I just want to experience the game. I just want to play it. I just want to experience. I have no intention of selling it. I have no intention of making money off of it. I just want to experience the game because I heard somebody talking about it. It's like, oh, let me go take a look. Oh, this game's really good. What? Oh, let me go check it. Oh, dude, it's fucking $300. I'm like, damn, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a car payment,
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
Samson, exactly. Like, geez.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And even with, I mean, people have been saying the retro market has crashed. And I'm like, well, when you go around and look online at prices, it doesn't look like it's crashed that much. Like, I mean,
No.
people are still asking like outrageous prices for things. I don't know how much of that stuff is selling. But it's a little bit ridiculous in some cases because, if you're a real collector too, like you kind of know if there's like an excess of a certain game or if there's
Right.
not, and then people are just asking for it because of maybe the name of the game.
Mhm.
They're asking an excessive amount of money just because of the name of the game, and it's like, dude, come on, like
Dude,
that.
Earthbound, perfect example. Earthbound.
Yeah.
Like, dude, what's so special about Earthbound? And I know I'm going to get some hate in the comments, and that's perfectly fine because I know they're fans of the game. I own the game. I like the game, but why is that game so expensive? You see, and Chrono Trigger, why are those games so expensive? You see them all over,
Chrono Trigger, I
retro
think, is
gaming stores and the conventions. It's like, it's not a rare game. Why is it so expensive?
Well, I think Chrono Triggers is a little bit more rare than Earthbound. I think Earthbound like had, I feel like a very massive production. Like Earthbound was everywhere. You
Yeah,
know, Chrono Trigger didn't seem like at the time like it was as big to me. I mean, I thought it was awesome.
love the
You know, it was
game. Yeah,
amazing. Of course,
absolutely.
like Akira Toriyama, and it's just such a beautiful RPG. It's an amazing RPG. Um, but so I could see why that one might be a little bit more expensive, but I agree that there is the factor of it's Chrono Trigger, you know, or it's Akira Toriyama now. Like that's what I think. Like, you know, if anything's halfway associated with Akira Toriyama, it's probably going to be worth a little bit more now.
Yeah,
Since
probably.
he's
Which is scary because like I'm a huge like Dragon Quest is my favorite series of all time. I love Final Fantasy and I love Dragon Quest, but I really favor Dragon Quest just a little bit more. Um, and my as you mentioned, I fear that like some of the games that I'm missing, or Dragon Quest games, if I don't pick them up immediately, we had a Dragon Quest Day on the
I
27th, and they were
yeah,
talking about the you know Dragon Quest 3 2D HD remake, and they're talking about the trilogy and all that. Like if I don't pick that up day one and it sells out, I can't even imagine, the price, the scalpers going on eBay and scalping that thing like crazy. It's like I'm
right.
gonna need to get that day one and pre-order that day one, because if I don't, the scalpers are gonna pick that up and go, because as you said, Akira Toriyama, there might be some stuff that he worked on before his passing, and
Right.
yeah, so it's definitely, I do believe that it's gonna go up in price like crazy.
You know, look at this comment. This is a good comment. Earthbound somehow now costs more than Chrono, and I don't understand. You know what it is? It's I think some of it is YouTube. I think that some of the bigger content creators who are picking up these, and I'm not hating on anybody, I'm not
No.
talking trash. I'm just saying when they bring attention to something, then people think that, oh, well, this is more rare, you know, because they have like, oh, this rare game, this game is rare. And so
But here's the funny thing, okay? Here's the funny thing. It's available on the Super NES Classic. It's
mm,
available on the Nintendo Switch. So the availability to play the game is now easier than ever with, for anyone that has a Nintendo Switch or a SNES Classic. So you have the ability to play Earthbound. You would think at this point that because Nintendo released it on their online system and they have it on the SNES Classic and so forth, that the price would go down. So yeah, it makes no sense that Earthbound, which is available on the Switch, available on the SNES Classic to be played, okay, where Chrono Trigger on the other hand was not released on the SNES Classic and not released on the Nintendo Switch online, that would be a little bit more, a little bit more pricier.
yeah.
I mean, you
Well,
can't even get the DS version.
the physical value of it, like I get the physical value aspect. And I mean, Twisted brings up a good point. He says you have to really know the market, why stuff is really expensive on certain items. Like Nintendo games have certain stickers on NES games, which makes them more rare. And that's
Yeah.
true. There's certain
Yep.
prints, there's certain variants, and there's certain games that just were not produced at like
Yeah.
a mass
Mhm.
production level or whatever, and that are just harder to come by, whether, you know, they just got thrown away. There are some games that actually, like, you know, everybody bought, but then they just got lost, broken, thrown away, whatever the case is.
Oh yeah.
And I think cartridges have a better, a more of a shelf life than CDs do, because, you know, CDs
Yeah.
can get scratched up and broken a lot easier. Um, and there's that aspect to it. But Earthbound is one of those games that I feel like has gotten expensive because of YouTubers,
Yeah.
because people are saying it's super rare, and it's really not that
Yeah.
rare of a game. Earthbound isn't.
It's
That's
available everywhere. Believe it. It's like any retro, like I said, retro game stores always carry at least one copy or two, and you could always find them in a convention. It's like, oh, I seen like 4 people selling Earthbound. It's like I hear it all the time. So it's not rare, in that sense, So It
Yeah,
doesn't
well,
make sense. And yeah.
and here's this argument. If you, let's just say like a very popular gaming YouTuber makes a video and says like, I found this rare game, right? And it's like a Super NES or NES game or something. Um, that game would go, it could potentially just go up in value because this popular, 1 million subscriber YouTuber just made a video with a thumbnail where they're holding it and they're like, this is a rare, but it could be like the shittest game with the not, it's not rare at all. Like it's literally falling off thrift store floors, like.
And that's where I get in trouble and that's how I get in trouble all the time, because I am the kind of dude, and I did it to this one guy, and everybody knows, if you watch any of my TikToks, one guy would always say, would you buy this? Would you buy this? Would you buy it? So expensive. I'm like, dude, it's not rare. And I would go off on him because it's like, where are you getting this information from? It's like, it's not rare. And that's me getting myself in trouble. I really don't like when people misinform audiences,
Yeah.
and like they don't educate properly when it comes to gaming. That's one of my biggest
Yeah.
like issues, is like, look, dude, like I love that you're interested in gaming, but if you don't like learn your history, or educate yourself properly, and then you provide false information, I'm going to call you out on it and make you look stupid, because there needs to be more people like that to say, hey, look, I'm watching out for the little guys so they don't get screwed. It's like, oh, it's not, it doesn't cost that much. And that's why I got a lot of people, even though, as you mentioned, as mentioned before, I could be very controversial, very raw, loud, and in your face. People come for me for gaming advice because they know I'm going to give them the honest truth. Is this game worth that much money? Is this game really, enjoyable? It's like, I will tell them straight out, my opinion. I don't care that, oh, well, everybody else says this game is great. Well, I don't think the game is great. Or this is the reason why I don't think this is great. This is why I don't think this game is worth that much money. Or, yeah, this is definitely a game worth money, because if you like this kind of stuff, it has that. And I just feel like, growing up, enjoying video games since like the age of 5, and almost being 50 years old here, that I absorbed enough knowledge that, I want people to know what they're getting into, and not be screwed and be like, man, I did buy that game because so-and-so, and it freaking sucks. Or, I spent so much money, and I saw it, for, $30 less or $50 less. And, I got ripped off. And it's like, come, and I tell people all the time, just ask me. Like, I don't mind, and I tell you my method and what I use, and and here, oh, I'll check that out. Here you go. Here's a link. Here's, I found it cheaper here. Or, hey, check out this game instead. I think you might like this one better, and whatnot.
Yeah. And it's a weird thing. The other thing I don't like is like trendy, retro. Wait, where's my retro gamers? Trendy retro gamers, like people who are like, I'm collecting this, but they're like not gamers. They're just, and it's like, okay, fine. You're not a gamer.
You can
You're
tell
just
who
a
they are.
collector. You're a hoarder, but they don't know anything about the game. And it's like, so all you're doing is just showing people like what you're collecting, but you don't know anything about it. And it's like, that's not really educating anyone, and I'm like, so that's like a weird fad to me, or like
Yeah, I
people who
got
get
this, I got
into the.
that, I got this. No, I'm like, I stopped collecting, to be honest. It's like, at this point, I don't care about collecting as much as experiencing the games and playing them. And that's why I'm
Yeah,
so,
but there, what makes me collect still
what's that?
occasionally, like, if I have to, is if it's a system that does not emulate properly.
Yes,
Excuse me.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. If it doesn't emulate properly, or I can't get it to play on the original console, which, like I said, I'm a big advocate for. I like, any device or anything to play original console so it plays nice. If I can't, I will have to spend the money. I will buy the game, and I don't care, how much it costs, if it's definitely one of those games. But for the most part, I stopped collecting because there are so many, like every system I have, Master System, GameCube, Super Nintendo, like, you know, you name it, N64, PlayStation, Wii, you know, every system that I have, you know, I'm looking at them because I forget what I have, you know, I have a way to play the ROM or the ISO or the you know, the you know, the game on the original hardware. So I don't have to worry about, you know, the emulation. And everybody's like, well, isn't the EverDrive emulation? It's not. And I try to explain people how it's not. And you know, the best way I explain it to someone is like, if you ever used like a CDR to record music, or and a CD writable, it's basically a CD writable, and you can rewrite over it. So that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's going to play the same way. It's just you're able to write and erase, and that's like, oh, okay. I'm like, all right, you know, that's the best way I can explain it to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. There's I think that's the biggest factor for me though, is the hardware factor. And
Right.
like this is obviously like we both say this, but we both have like Super Nintendo, which is emulated perfectly and all that stuff. But I mean, I'm talking about like currently, you know, like stuff that I haven't already collected if I was going to. Um I think like the range of those things are kind of like Saturn, N64, Saturn, N64, 3DO.
I would love to get my hands on one of those 3DO. I haven't. My buddy had a 3DO, and Phillips.
I'm
Is it
pretty sure
Phillips?
you can.
Philip 3DO? Yeah, he had a
Well,
3DO.
there's several different models. If you do go with an FC10, because those are the
FC10,
top
right? We were
loading
talking about
ones.
that. Was that
Yeah,
that's the Panasonic, right? The
and I is the FC10. Yeah, I think FC10 is still Panasonic. So there's two Panasonic models. There's Gold Star, and then there is I think there's one other one, and then there's like a super limited edition one.
Yeah, he had the Panasonic 3DO. That's what I remembered, and
But
I
there's
used to play that one a lot at his house. We only played one game, pretty much, and that was just Rebel Assault.
yeah, Rebel Assault. But that was one of the cool things about 3DO, was it was kind of cross platform with PC at that time.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, there was a lot of coolness that kind of went along with some of the games that it shared with PC. Super chat from Twisted Gaming TV. I sold a graded Twisted Metal Black to wait, is that? No, that's not it. Now House of the Dead for Sega Saturn is expensive. Really? Holy crap.
How much is
That's
how much is
crazy.
that? Because like, again, that's another reason why I love having like options like the Saru, or however you say it,
Thank you
because
for the super
you know,
chat.
that's a game that I played in the arcade, and I'm able to emulate it perfectly through, you know, and play it, you know, on the Sega Saturn. And I was using my light gun, and I was playing House of the Dead, and I'm like, yeah, this rocks.
CIB 500.
Wow, that is pretty
That
crazy.
is that US or see, this is where this is a game where I go Japan automatically if I'm going to get, you know, because
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, it's $500 for the American version of this game, Japanese version sealed, because I mean, not sealed, but like, you know, complete in box, because it's like literally with games like this or Street Fighter or X-Men versus Street Fighter. Well, technically that was an exclusive in Japan, but those games, it doesn't matter what the language is. Like the language is universal, you know?
Right.
So I do that, but I know that like collectors, like, you know, they want to collect on the American market.
Just want to play the game.
US Japan ain't worth much. Yeah, and usually that's how it is. But yeah, I just want to play the game. Or if I have, you know, if it's a game that I want a physical copy of, then I'll go that route.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean,
most
there are games that I will buy, you know, still, you know, physically, especially if I could get a good price, or, you know, it's something like, you know, definitely, you know, I'm a huge fan of, you know, I'm not like, you know, hey, I'm not gonna buy it because, you know, I could play it. It's just, you know, I pick and choose now. Before I was like, oh, I'll just buy that and throw that in my collection. Oh, I buy that and throw it in my collection and stuff like that. And, you know, majority of my stuff, even though I don't have a large collection, I have a small collection considering, you know, some other content creators and retro gamers that I know. Mine is considered small, but I still have a lot of games that I haven't played and haven't touched. And now it's like I just want to play the games and
Mhm.
enjoy them because I didn't get a chance to. It was more of the, ooh, I got to get that. Ooh, it's experience. It's like, ooh, look at this, I got something. Hey guys, look what I got. Like you mentioned, and not knowing the history of it and stuff. But I know majority of the games that I own, I know the game and played other parts of the game and stuff like that. So it's just I just want to play. And I was looking, I know 8-bit fits mentioned like RetroPie, but like I'm looking into, I hear a lot of good things about the Mr. FPGA. So I
Mhm.
was looking at that because of the way that it works on the hardware level, not the software level. And even with emulation, as we spoke to, like the biggest thing I find with emulation is, for me, I get a lot of screen tearing. Okay,
Mm.
so when I'm playing on my monitor is 144 hertz. So I was like, and I noticed if I load up an emulator like BizHawk, for example, and I'll play an NES game or Super NES game, I will definitely see some screen tearing. And to eliminate that, I have to put it down at 60 frames per hertz and stuff like that. So that bothers me. I don't. That's why I prefer playing on the hardware at times. And I heard that the Mister plays it on the hardware level, so that's why I'm looking at the Mister over like a RetroPie, which plays on the software level, which is a really
Mhm.
big difference from what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, the Mister is really cool. They're a little bit more expensive than when they started. I feel like everything like pre-COVID is that way though. Because
Right.
I mean, even the retro market was like got substantially more expensive when
Well,
COVID started.
did you see
But
the guy who's actually there's I saw a YouTube. There's someone working on a clone device that runs the Mister, and the parts are clone pieces to make it more affordable, under $100, under $100, where
oh,
it
that's
will load
cool.
the Mister FPGA software and stuff like that. Like it's clone part, and he was showing it. So I've been following that, and actually he had it installed in a handheld device. So the Mister was running in a handheld device. If I find it would take me a while to find it, but once I find it, I will
Yeah.
send you a link
If
on
you
that
do
so you
if
can
you
take a
do
look at
share it
that.
with me.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
but yeah, my solution is kind of somewhere in between. Those mini PCs are just next level for something like that. And I mean, you can get them for about 160 bucks with an Intel chipset. The Ryzen ones
Great.
are a little bit more, but you set it up, you get it to boot. When it boots into Windows, it just boots into your front end.
Nice.
And then you just have all of your emulators linked to the system that you want it to be linked to, have VSync turned on, have all your refresh rates and resolutions set. And that's kind of how I run it. And you can adjust your latency and stuff like that. And I would say it covers all the bases for me. I think Mister for me would be like kind of more of a hardcore solution, or something that I would put in, like, I guess, like a cabinet, because it also is like a really good solution for CRT. But it's definitely like from my understanding, it's the most optimized way to play a lot of those classic games, and all the cores on there are really good. And obviously it's another one of those things that's really cool, because the people that dev it are literally just like doing it because they want to make it better, and out of the
Yeah,
goodness of their heart. So
exactly.
um but those games are like individually done. Raspberry Pi, me personally, I am not a fan of Raspberry Pis. Like, they were cool when they first came out, and they were about like, $30. And now they're over 100. And to really set it up the right way, it's almost the cost of a mini PC. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to pay 120 bucks for a Raspberry Pi when I can get a mini PC for, 160.
Right. Well,
Um,
that's my argument as well. It's like the prices back then when they first came out were like, oh wow, this is really cool, $30 and stuff, and stuff. But like the price point now, to build a Pi, okay, are over $100, 120, 130, depending on what Pi version, Pi 5, Pi 4, and stuff like that. And then you have to buy the controllers and stuff like that, and stuff. They come down now. I mean, when last time I saw, they were pretty expensive, but if I'm going to pay that much, I agree with you. I'm going to go with another alternative that I know is going to run, but a little bit better.
Here's my argument. Like, so a Pi 4, if they've come back down to 45, but then you have to pay for shipping, right? And I'm just being petty because so let's just say it's like $60 or whatever. But I'd rather pay $60 to $80 more and get an Intel chipset that's going to be able to play all the games that a Pi 4 can, and like hundreds of games that it can't play because it's not capable of doing it. Like, for example, Killer Instinct. Pi 4 can't play Killer Instinct. Can't do it.
Really?
Yeah. So it's just they're too underpowered. I think for a very small limited setup, like if you're and you're in that price range, like maybe $45 out the door for a very small limited setup, like I'm sticking with only 8 and 16-bit, like, all right, that's perfect. That's the perfect solution. But for me, if I want like a full-on emulation setup, like I want an Intel or a Ryzen chipset, I guess. So, I mean, to me, it makes sense to pay 60 or $80 more to get that full experience instead of like chasing it with a Raspberry Pi for a good emulation setup. Now, again, I mean, I think they're great for a very small, limited, setup, like 8 to 16-bit. But that's just my opinion.
Well, once and if this, I think it's Taki too. I just looked it up. Who's working on the clone chips for the Mr. FPGA? If he could get that affordable at $100 cost and stuff like that, I think that's a route I would definitely go down, for the fact of the simple all-in-one solution for testing out games, trying out games, playing games, streaming games, and stuff like that. I think that's a route, because to get like and I like the retro tinks and the upscalers, and they're all great, but you're going to go into cost, RGB modding your systems, doing this. I want an all-one solution that works well and plays well, and not have to worry about, as you said, oh, it's not going to play Killer Instinct. Damn, I want to play Killer Instinct. Right. I want an all-in-one solution that people are going to constantly work on, constantly update, constantly get things working on, that works well and plays well and looks great, and it works. It just out there works. I don't want to have to deal with, oh, this might not work, this may work, and that's so I might go down that route if it happens.
Yeah, mini PC route is good.
Yep.
And then you have obviously the option of like USB controllers. So I mean, if you want to do specific to your system, like that, it's very easy to do with like 8-bit do makes so many good.
I was just talking about that today, which is kind of funny. No joke. I was in somebody's stream earlier today while just hanging out on Twitch, and I'm using my Super NES controller, with an old Radio Shack adapter to convert it to USB. And I'm like, I need a better solution. I used to use iBuffalo controls, which were SNES replica. Like they were the standard. Like they were freaking awesome USB controllers, but they don't make them anymore. So somebody kept telling me, and I hear it all the time, dude, just get yourself an 8-bit do SN30. Like get yourself an SN30 and you'll be set. And I'm like, I definitely got to pull the plug on those, because I do use emulations for my speed runs a lot. And and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna wind up buying an SN30 and be like, screw it, because I hear nothing. I have never heard anything bad about 8-bit do controllers.
Yeah, I haven't had anything but good experiences with them. And on Amazon, you can usually find them like used, but like in new condition, as returns or whatever, and they get it out to you just as fast as they do with Prime or whatever. Same thing, but they're just open box basically, and it's like
they're literally going on sale too. I noticed that too. Like so I'll just wait until, like, I go, on Amazon, they're always going on sale. So I'll just wait until I get the alerts. I'll get the alerts on Discord or something like that, and or on Twitter, and they'll tell, I'll be like, oh, they're on sale. So I'm just gonna wait until they go on sale and just snag one or two of them, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, chat, for those of you who are in here, thank you again for joining us. And please remember to, if you're enjoying the stream, give that like button or that thumbs up, smash that for us. And Mikey's channel, I have his name tagged in the description. So if you want to check him out, check his content out, and definitely consider giving him a subscribe. I mean, he's well versed in his retro knowledge, and he's very entertaining. So check out his channel, and he's got you're still on TikTok, right? And he's on Instagram as well.
I'm no longer on TikTok. I'm permabanned from that place.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I'm not on there either. So,
but it's MikeyLovesRetro everywhere else: Twitter, Instagram, Google Plus.
Yeah, yeah. So check him out. And let's see, where are we at? So we got about 15 minutes left. I just wanted to say that before everybody starts jetting towards the end of the stream. But yeah. And again, I appreciate you coming on, Mikey. So
thank you for having me. Seriously, yeah.
Kind of in the last 15 minutes here, listen, chat. Please ask questions. Ask Mikey questions. And we're just general talk here, kind of emulation, retro gaming, arcades, whatever. It's all good. But yeah, ask away, and don't ask him questions like what size underwear does he wear, because nobody wants to know.
I'll tell you, but I mean, does it really matter?
That's such like an old person joke. Like, yeah, hey, knee slapper. Let's see. Great show. Thank you. How many physical games you have in your collection, Mikey? Says Twisted.
I used to use an app called Sorted app, and they stopped, and I haven't actually cataloged my games, but I would definitely say retro and new gen. I would definitely have to say it's like close to 1,000, at least 1,000, because my retro games are over 700, 800, and I definitely have PS5, PS4. It has to have, and Nintendo Switch and Wii U, like, definitely close to 1,000 at least. I mean, that's
crazy.
I don't know the exact number, and don't ask me the last game like I bought, because I don't remember.
Yeah, that's so many. That's one of the reasons why I ended up buying flashcards, because like you said, kind of at the beginning of the show, it's a great way to feed like I want that game, but I want to play it like on the real hardware or whatever.
It's not also that like save money. It's discovering the discoverability of what is this game? I'll put the whole collection on my EverDrive if it fits on an SD card. And then I'll be scrolling down the Nintendo. I'm like, dude, it's Nintendo 8-bit. Why haven't I? What is this game? And like, yo, dude, did you play this game yet? I'm like, no, what is it? I'm like, and I'm still discovering games now that I haven't, Yeah. Thanks, Manny.
Manny's good, dude. If the IO cover is a single unit with VRM heatsink, are we talking about pies? There might be a thermal pad on the back. I don't know. Is that pies? Sorry. Nice. What's the best wrestling game on the N64? What was it? What was the big one? Like WrestleMania 2000 or something? Or
WCW versus
WCW.
NWO, I think it was.
Okay.
They did make a couple of good wrestling games. It's a shame. Speaking of wrestling games, as I'm a huge wrestling fan, it's a shame that wrestling games haven't gotten better. They seem to have gotten worse with every installment. Like I recently looked at the newest wrestling games on like PlayStation 5 and like the newest 2K whatever. It just doesn't impress me. I like the older games. I like SmackDown versus Raw on PlayStation 2, like stuff like that, like PlayStation 1 Warzone. Like those were the fun wrestling games. And N64 did have a couple of wrestling games that were really good.
Yeah, I remember people like I had friends who were like into wrestling games. I think the only one that I ever really liked was that one that WrestleMania, the one that like came out on PlayStation generation.
Yeah.
and it had like Razor Ramon and whatever Bozo the
Yep.
Clown. I don't know
I
who it
think I
was.
even had that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Good
going
guessing games back then.
long box. Um, the Gen X early millennial nostalgia for sprites, cartridges, low res. Sorry, I'm trying to whether you swore by the NES. Yeah, were you ever like into the you know what, that's a good question. Were you a fan of like the Genesis and
I started with
Raspberry
Super
Pi?
Nintendo because everybody had a Super Nintendo, and I came
Mm.
growing up with a Nintendo. I didn't have a Sega Master System. You
Oh,
know,
that's
a
funny.
buddy had a Sega Master System. He had a TurboGrafx. I grew up with Nintendo originally, and then a when Genesis did come out, I did buy a Genesis, so I did grow up with both of them. So I had a Sega Genesis, and we played a lot of Sega Genesis growing up as well. It was mostly for the fighting games and the sports games. Playing John Madden football with your friends or playing fighting games on the Genesis. They just felt a little bit different playing sports games on the Sega Genesis and fighting games on the Sega Genesis with the 6-button controller. It felt different. Like Mortal Kombat felt different. It had blood. Not to say that the game, Super Nintendo didn't
Mhm.
have good fighting games and the sports games. There's just something about playing NHL '94 and NBA Jam and John Madden on a Sega Genesis that
Yeah.
was so different than playing it on Super Nintendo.
It was that Motorola processor. I mean,
Yeah,
they
I mean the
because
blast processing. That's exactly what it was. It was the blast processing.
the but the Motorola chipset that they used in there was like basically a miniaturized version of what a lot of the arcade boards at that time were using. It was just about half the speed. And then when Sega CD came out, that actually upped the speed to like be kind of equate to what the same speed of the arcade was. It's just that the Genesis itself couldn't handle as many on-screen sprites and yada yada yada. So there was, still some things that obviously it couldn't do. But I always say that that's why a lot of games on the Genesis, though they weren't as colorful, they played better, was because the architecture of the Genesis was more similar to an arcade system architecture versus the Super Nintendo, which is weird. I mean, like the architecture of the Super Nintendo is weird. It's
I
cool,
yeah.
but
I think
um,
certain games played definitely better on Sega, and then I do believe certain games played better on Super Nintendo. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of games that came out for Super Nintendo and Sega, and you compare them side by side. There's a lot of comparisons on YouTube, and I look and like because I like to know, like, okay, what's the differences? Like, okay, which one should I play on? Should I play it on this, like the Aladdin's and the for example, and stuff like that. So there were a lot of different variations of the games, the like Maximum Carnage, for example, and stuff like that. So, the very, I'll look and see which one I preferred, and then I go play that one.
yeah, yeah. I kind of had the luxury of having both at one point when I was younger.
Nice.
My dad's house was like we had Sega stuff, and then my mom's house I had like a Super Nintendo over there. So that's where I would kind of
Awesome.
compare. And I was talking I think I was talking about this on another live, but one of the things that because I mean, I'm kind of like a huge fighting game fan.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the things that I was always upset about was that they never came out with a Sega CD version of Street Fighter. I'm like,
Dude,
dude,
why? Like,
yeah,
why?
they could have destroyed it if they would have done it on Sega CD. Like it would have been so good.
Yeah, I
I
have
could,
the Sega CD, and you know what? That's true. I'm like, wait, I have Eternal Champions on it, and I have other games on that. I'm like, you know what? Now I'm going back. You're absolutely right. They never created any Street Fighter for a Sega CD, and it just doesn't make sense.
yeah. Or 32X. It could have
Yep.
been. I mean, think about how much it would have sold. It would have breathed
Oh yeah,
life into that system.
yeah, it would have like pancakes. Yeah.
Crazy pancakes.
Yep.
Um. Let's see. Does this? Sorry, I'm like half blind, even with my glasses on. Genesis was out for 2 years when the SNES. Yeah, Genesis. And I remember getting our Genesis. My dad bought the Altered Beast set, and which was like a huge deal to me because I mean, the Genesis had like those quick sprites, really just amazing when it first came out, especially. And that was the only way to play Altered Beast, because I mean, I played it in the arcade all the time. Like, I loved that game. And
And
so that was like a huge deal for me. But he bought that, and yeah, then I remember SNES came out, and like, everybody thought it was so great because you had Mario Kart and Super Mario World, and those are great games. Like, I absolutely love them. And it was like, noticeably, it looked like just more colorful and everything. But it definitely, again, there's those two different like architectures, and you could get some things on the Genesis that you just couldn't get on the Super
oh yeah,
Nintendo.
yeah.
So
It was just very different playing certain
was the
games
vibe.
on each system. It's just, you could definitely tell big difference going back. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been insane. Or Super Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
Dude, they could have possibly even done Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, you know? So it's crazy. Genesis was everywhere. You could buy it in JC Penney. Yeah, it was. And then they had so many different models of it too. Now, were they the first ones to do that, like make like downscaled or downsized models of the Genesis, or yeah, they were, weren't they?
Super Nintendo did that as well. You
Yeah,
know,
but didn't
where
they
with
they
the
like did
junior
it.
model.
Yeah, I think they did it after, though. I don't know. Now I have
Possibly
to
did
look
it
because
after.
I don't want to say the wrong thing. Um, but the Genesis did like 3 different models, and I remember they got cheaper and cheaper as time went along. And
It took things away from it, I think, too, with the downsizing. And again, I could be wrong, but like, I know that like, you'll have the one the first model that had high definition graphics on the actual Genesis. It'll say high definition graphics, which had a better audio expansion port where you could plug in, and you would have stereo sound, even though it had through the actual back,
yeah,
it had only mono sound and stuff like that. But the front port, and then they changed it, so different
I
models
think that's what
for.
it was, like the serial port. That so like I think the last one didn't work with Sega CD. Um, I think that was like one of the big ones. Was it didn't work with Sega CD or 32X? Correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but I think the Genesis 3 didn't have that compatibility, and that was like why it was so budget. But the Genesis 2 obviously Genesis 1
Yeah.
both did. But oh yeah, I was gonna say something, but I lost it. Anyways, yeah, SNES then came out with the SNES Mini, which I think they just dropped the serial port on that one.
They dropped you could not, like, the original model has S video out, and has um a native RGB. You could put RGB cables, and it had the eject button. It had the red light to indicate that the system was on. All that was taken out of the junior model, which I have the junior model. The junior model seems to be brighter, as far as when you put in a game, it has the brighter. But I like the fact that the original model to tell me, okay, this is on, this is. And of course, it's so easy to, like, chip them out now for multi out, and RGB them out and stuff like that. That's the small chip for that, to do that. But like, I like the fact that the original model has those capabilities.
Yeah. And what I was gonna say is so when they started going to those smaller or more condensed versions of the systems, is when they really that's when we like pretty much lost like bundled games in
Yeah.
systems. Like after that, there was they came with demo discs, which was cool. But and I think N64 may have done a couple, but then it was demo discs, and then now it's just digital. But that was like the end of bundled systems, like where
I
you got
hated
2
that.
controllers and a game and a system, for
No, give me a physical copy. Okay. Quick story time. Okay, this is why I'm a big, I prefer physical media. I bought my 3DS. Okay, I got my 3DS as a Christmas gift. Okay. Oh, because of being a Zelda fan, I wanted to play Link Between Worlds. You know when I was able to play Link Between Worlds? A week later, because I had the system with no games and every store was closed. So I couldn't play anything with my 3DS because it came with a digital download and the servers were dead. The servers were all down. So you couldn't get it from the eShop, couldn't download it. So I had a 3DS on Christmas Day that I could not play anything. Give me a physical copy. Okay, if you're going to promote it, they do that with the God of War. PlayStation 5 was a digital download. It's like, no, I'd rather just buy the console now and go buy the disc. It's like
Yeah.
servers go down, especially during the holidays. It's like, and I remember that. So yeah, yeah, and that's when, yeah, that's literally when I believe you're right. It's when it stopped.
Yeah. And there was something so satisfying about getting, like the older bundled packages, and just you had everything there. You had your first game, 2 controllers. I mean, you were ready to go out of the box.
Yep.
And they just nickel and dime you now, like pretty much like everything. But on that note, we're gonna wrap up the show. Chat, appreciate the super chats and everyone who showed up. To anybody who's new here, thank you for joining us. And again, Mikey's channel is in the description. And thank you again very much, by the way, Mikey, for joining me. And
Oh, thank you.
before we head off of the live stream, do you have anything you want to say about your content or your channel you'd like to throw out there, shill for yourself?
Just right now that I've been trying to focus on other stuff like Twitch. I know there's a lot of folks here from TikTok, and people still aren't aware that I'm officially off the platform. So, but you could find me everywhere else on Twitter, on Threads, Instagram. I'm streaming on Twitch, on Kick. Focusing on trying to do some YouTube stuff. So it's Mikey Loves Retro everywhere. Follow me on Twitter because I do announce when I do go live, and I have some new stuff out there. That's where I usually let people know. Redoing a schedule for my live stream content, so I don't have a permanent schedule. We're going to be trying something new to bring more audiences in, and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I going to be doing gaming content and continue doing that and doing live streams and stuff, especially a lot of retro stuff. So yeah.
Right on. And I'm just throwing this out here because you have great opinions, obviously, and you're history rich in retro gaming. So for your YouTube channel, I hope to see like more of you, possibly, something that you get into, putting out like some videos of you, like, doing some game history, and like whether it's your history mixed in with the actual game history, and like talking about like specific games that you think are like really good. I think that would be something that you'd be really good at.
I definitely want to experience more YouTube. My biggest hurdle with YouTube is actually video editing and learning how to video edit and create something that looks like I have the thought process of what I want it to look like. Getting that from here to
Thanks,
here
Jason.
is my biggest hurdle, is learning how to actually use the software and getting everything rocking and rolling. And once I think I get that hurdle, and get that done, I think that I will definitely be putting out more content. It's definitely something I gotta learn, and I have time, so I'll learn it, and I'll get it out there for sure.
All right, cool. Well, chat, y'all have a safe weekend. All right. Take care of each other. Give somebody you love a hug. If you don't have anybody specific like close by, I mean, hug yourself or something in the mirror. And until next time, I will see you guys then. So take care.
Later all.